Hey guys, it's Cody from Cody Doll Artist and Paper is My Story. And today I'm coming with you with a vlog style video about me coffee dyeing paper. So I'm just filling up my teacup, my tea kettle, with water to heat it up. I didn't get it to pure boiling point, but I got it really hot. And now I'm pouring it into a plastic container. I've noticed when you used instant coffee, or any coffee really, that it's better to have hot water than regular water. I don't know, it just seems to work better. It's really humid in Florida, so I had to kind of unstick my instant coffee. So that's what I was doing with the paintbrush. And now I'm just sticking the papers in. And on the side here, I have one piece of paper that I'm making big splotches. Something I learned and I love about coffee dyeing is when you put a layer of something first, like if you dunk a layer and then you come back and dunk another layer, the first layer gets darker and the second layer is lighter. So what I'm doing with the splotches is getting them dark and letting them soak into the paper before I dunk the paper again so it becomes darker. So I have a bunch of papers. Now these papers are from Webster's Pages. They're TN. I just took out the staples and I took half of them over to tea or coffee dye. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm just smushing them in. I also have a piece of ledger paper. These papers are gonna go together in my Traveler's Notebook kit. So now what I'm doing is setting the timer on my microwave for 15 minutes. I didn't actually make the whole 15 minutes for timing to let them soak because I made the coffee extra dark. I didn't feel that 15 minutes were needed. And now what I'm doing is removing the papers. Normally, I would bake my papers in the oven at 200 and carefully watching it. But because this evening we were actually making dinner in the oven, my oven stovetop was already really hot, and of course you don't want to put papers in the oven at really high temperature because they will burn and that would be bad. So what I'm doing is I'm putting them on top of my cookie sheet on top of my really hot oven stove, and as you can see that back paper is already steaming. It's already pretty warm, so I'm just watching it as I take the papers out and letting it get warm and slowly dry, but I have to keep an eye on it because it can burn. They are paper, so if you do this, watch it. Now my oven's on, I think 450, that's why it was so hot, and the whole stovetop was hot. Here I did a heart out of coffee first, and I realized it looked kind of plain, so I took the edges and I dipped the edges of that paper into the coffee liquid, coffee dunking area. And then that way the edges of the heart were covered in coffee, and it makes like a really cool drippy effect on it. So the back of my oven, of course, is hotter than my front, so what I'm doing is I pulled the back paper off because it got warm, and I'm putting it straight onto the stove. It seems that my stove gets hotter in the right corner than the other corner, so that's where most of my papers dry, and then they sit on the stove just to make sure they get hot. That's a paper that I did like a polka dot effect with a really concentrated amount of coffee on my and there's the one from earlier that I was showing you. Really concentrated piece of coffee on my paintbrush. And what I'll do in a minute, I don't know if I film it, but I take that polka dotted paper and I dunk it into the coffee. So the coffee that's on there will be darker than the paper around it. But it also helps because there's a few spots that are kind of sticky because it's too much coffee on the polka dots. So by dunking it, it actually releases the sticky out of it, and it just becomes one kind of cohesive paper and not sticky coffee. So I'm just flipping the papers, making sure that they're getting dry, but they're not getting hot because don't want to burn paper. This does make the papers crinkly, and I don't mind that because once it's all bound together in a junk journal, it becomes, the weight of the journal will hold itself down. So I had to be careful with the ledger paper. I didn't realize how flimsy the ledger paper was going to be, and when you lay a piece of paper down on a hot surface like my cookie sheet, as you can see, it's kind of steaming, and I'm flipping it because the backside got hotter than the front. You have to be careful the way you lay it, because if it crinkles on itself, it will dry in that way, and the coffee will seep down into the crevice of the fold. And I don't think it's a bad effect. It's just something to think about. If you would rather a more cohesive look, then maybe make sure that you have a flat surface to lay it on. I don't mind splotches and splashes. That's why when I put my coffee into the water, I didn't immediately mix it up, because I like when the grounds get on the paper and make like little spots and splashes and dips and dribbles, and it looks like somebody spilt their coffee all over it. That's what I like. I like texture in my paper. It just gives me a stage for unblank pages. I don't like a blank page. I don't like white space. That's not me. I like, especially like having a paper to go to create on that's already got something in the background. So like a grade, a ledger paper, or coffee dyed splatters. I think that's just my aesthetic. It might not be yours. If yours is more of a straight, plain, just coffee dyed color, and you want like a plain coffee dyed color paper, Romany of Romany's Rome has a video in her online class that you can watch about coffee dyeing. I'll leave the link for her class below. It's actually why I started coffee dyeing in the first place today, because of her. I watched her video and I was like, I need to coffee dye again. I loved doing it for my index cards 2 years ago. I miss it. So here I'm taking a page I already dunked, and I'm putting a very concentrated amount of coffee splatters onto the page. Like I said, I like the splatters. I think it looks good. Of course, I got it all over me, but that's just me. I think it makes the page interesting and different. And you'll see it later if you watch my junk journal video. I actually think I put a little Raven ink monster on it. So I'm just flipping the pages. Now this page I had, as you saw, flipped over the edge to catch, the heat. And you can see, I think in a minute, that the coffee settles down on the edge of the paper where it's not over the rim. So what I'm doing is I'm just flipping it, because I got worried that that back corner gets pretty hot. And with that paper hanging down, I was a little scared that it might catch on fire. But you can see very clearly that highlight in that paper is actually where it was folded over on the cookie sheet originally. So see, I'm folding it over and then realized I wanted it to dry still pretty wet. You can see the steam coming off of it, so the oven's pretty hot. This is not normally how I do it, but it actually worked out, I think, better than if I had put them in the oven. Because normally if I put them in the oven, it takes another 10-15 minutes on 200. Because our oven isn't accurate, it's probably more like 150. And you have to constantly watch it. Whereas here, while I do have to constantly still watch it, it's out in the open. So I'm not having to worry about the oven totally catching fire on the inside. It would be outside. I still have to watch it. You should always watch your paper if you coffee dye in the oven and you go to dry it. Now, if crinkling bothers you, you can always take an iron and very lightly put it over a rag, put like a napkin, what do they call it? A hand towel. Put a hand towel over your paper and then iron out the wrinkles. A lot of people do that. Like I said, I just don't see the need. The weight of the paper that I put in the junk journal is going to weigh itself out. Plus, I'm probably going to watercolor over it. So I'm officially done with watercoloring, so I'm just cleaning up my mess, making sure I rinse out. I'm not washing it because I'll probably coffee dye again in a couple days. Well, that's it for this video, so thanks for watching. Give me a like and subscribe, and leave your comment and questions down below. Thanks for watching.